Epsilon Outpost hung like a jewel in the cold vacuum of space. A massive station bristling with antennae, docking bays, and neon lights flickering against the blackness. It was a melting pot where species from across the galaxy bartered, plotted, and claimed their slice of the void. Inside one of the grand halls, an assembly of alien diplomats and mercenaries buzzed with low, mocking laughter. The center of their amusement? The humans. Specifically, their infamous reputation for letting emotions run wild. "You'll never understand," sneered Thraxil, a six-armed negotiator from the Zelvron Dominion. His multi-jointed fingers danced expressively as he addressed the room. Humans are slaves to their rage. Weak, primitive. Their outbursts disrupt logic and diplomacy. They belong in the past, not the future. Across the table sat Jara Voss, the human envoy. She was lean and battle-hardened, her dark eyes sharp as obsidian. Her jaw tightened, but she kept her composure. Around her, other humans exchanged tight, controlled breaths, their fists clenched beneath the table. Thraxil's words hung heavy in the air, drawing smirks and whispered agreements from alien delegates. The room was a stage, and humans were the exotic fools whose antics entertained the cosmic elite. Jara's voice was calm but laced with steel. "Our emotions drive our will to survive. You underestimate us at your own peril." The alien assembly chuckled again, not bothering to conceal their disdain. Across the hall, a small group of humans gathered near the observation windows. They were away from the pomp and protocol, rougher, realer. Among them was Kale, a grizzled ex-soldier with scars that told stories no diplomat cared to hear. Kale's eyes darkened as he watched the proceedings. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear but rage. Not the blind, uncontrolled fury the aliens mocked. This was a deep, burning fire forged in hardship and loss. "They think rage is a weakness," Kyle muttered, voice low. "They don't realize it's our greatest weapon." Behind him, a younger human named Rena, her fists twitching nervously, whispered, "What can we do? We're outnumbered and outgunned." Kyle's gaze snapped to her. "Fight when the time comes, but first we survive. We endure." The negotiations dragged on, an exhausting dance of words and power plays. The aliens' contempt grew heavier, with every insult disguised as civility. Jara's patience thinned like ice under heat. Finally, the meeting broke. The humans left, heads held high but hearts burning with unresolved fury. Later, deep in the station's less glamorous sector, the humans sought refuge in a cantina known as the Rusted Ion. It was dimly lit, smelling of burnt oil and stale smoke, but it was theirs. The alien patrons inside barely glanced at the humans who entered. Most species here treated humans as curiosities. Dangerous, volatile curiosities. Kale slid onto a worn stool at the bar. The bartender, a hulking Tharnox with 3 eyes, grunted a greeting. Kale nodded, signaling for something strong. Rena sat beside him, her fingers nervously tapping the table. "Why do they hate us so much?" she asked quietly. Kale took a long drink before answering. "Because we don't fit their neat categories. We rage, we fight, we feel deeply, and we survive. That scares them." Suddenly, a booming laugh cut through the murmur of the cantina. A group of Xenobarians, large reptilian mercenaries, sauntered in, eyes glinting with malice. One of them, towering over the rest, spotted Rena nursing her drink. He sneered, "Look at the little human girl, all fragile and angry." Rena's hand twitched, fingers curling into a fist. Kale's eyes narrowed. The Xenobarian shoved a drunken fistful of alien ale towards her. "Spill that again and maybe we'll teach you how fragile you really are." Rena recoiled, nearly tipping her drink. A splash spilled on the table. That was all the spark needed. Kale slammed his fist down. "Enough!" The Xenobarian laughed, louder and crueler. "What's the matter, human? You going to cry?" The bar fell silent, the tension snapping taut. Kyle stood slowly, muscles coiling like springs. His voice was low but thunderous. "We don't cry, we fight." The Xenobarian smirked, stepping closer. Then, like a crack of lightning, chaos erupted. Fists flew, tables overturned, and the cantina transformed into a battlefield. But this was no drunken brawl. The humans fought with a ferocity and precision that shocked everyone. Their rage was a blade, cutting through arrogance and cruelty. As Kale landed a crushing blow that sent the Xenobarian crashing through a wall, the gathered aliens realized their mockery had awakened something far more dangerous than they had imagined. And this was only the beginning. The moment Kale's fist slammed into the Xenobarian, the rusted ion erupted into chaos. Tables splintered, chairs flew, and the low hum of conversation twisted into shouts and roars. The air thickened with the smell of sweat, burnt ozone from broken energy packs, and the sharp sting of spilled alien liquor. The bar's regular patrons, grizzled smugglers, mercenaries, and traders, froze in shock. Alien muscles tensed, claws unsheathed, and eyes widened as the humans unleashed a fury that was both terrifying and strangely calculated. Kale's second blow sent the reptilian mercenary staggering, crashing through the thin wall that separated the rusted ion from the adjacent marketplace. A stunned silence fell for a heartbeat. Then the battle resumed with renewed ferocity. Rena ducked under a wild swipe from a six-limbed Tharnox mercenary, twisting her body with uncanny speed. She landed a sharp punch to his jaw that cracked his mandibles and sent him sprawling backward. Around her, humans fought back to back, a swirling storm of muscle and rage. Every movement was precise, every strike brutal, but beneath it all was an unmistakable rhythm, a deadly dance honed through years of hardship and survival. The aliens, once smug and confident, found themselves outmatched by a force they had never truly understood. "Control your fury," shouted one of the Xenobarian leaders, his voice cracking with disbelief. "They fight like beasts possessed." But the humans' rage was more than mindless violence. It was a weapon forged from desperation and resilience. Kale moved through the fray like a predator, his eyes sharp, scanning for threats and weaknesses. A pair of massive alien guards tried to flank him, but he spun and delivered a devastating elbow strike that sent one sprawling and the other staggering. "Enough." The harsh voice came from the bar's entrance. A squad of Epsilon Outpost's security forces, sleek, armored, and heavily armed, burst into the chaos. They fired stun nets and energy pulses, forcing combatants apart. Kyle didn't resist. He raised his hands, chest heaving, eyes blazing with unspent fury. Around him, his comrades also yielded, muscles trembling but ready to erupt again if needed. The alien mercenaries grumbled, nursing bruises and wounded pride. The bar lay wrecked, tables broken, walls cracked, and a few electronic displays shattered. The head of security, a tall humanoid with crystalline eyes named Saren, stepped forward. "This station will not tolerate riots," she said sharply. "You will come with us for questioning." Kyle nodded, voice low but steady. "We'll cooperate. But know this. We didn't start this fight because we wanted to. We started it because someone threw the first insult." Saren's eyes flicked to the injured Xenobarians. "You're lucky it didn't get worse." Outside the stations, corridors buzzed with whispered rumors. Screens displayed grainy footage from surveillance cameras, images of the fight, humans moving with ferocious grace, aliens beaten back. Across Epsilon Outpost, those who had mocked human rage now whispered, in fear. Later, in the holding cells beneath the station, Jaravos paced the narrow room where the humans were detained. "They'll spin this into a disaster," she said grimly. "The alien delegates will demand sanctions, and the humans will be blamed." Kyle leaned against the cold wall, his face etched with exhaustion and frustration. "They don't get it," he said quietly. "We don't fight just because we're angry. Our rage is survival. It's a code." Rena sat cross-legged on the floor, bruised but alert. "Do you think this changes anything? Will they start respecting us?" Jara shook her head. "Not respect, fear. Fear can be as dangerous as hatred." The cell door hissed open. Saren entered, her expression unreadable. "You have a choice," she said. "There's a challenge proposed, a demonstration of strength, skill, and control. Win, and the humans will be recognized as equals in this outpost. Lose, and you'll be cast aside. Kale's eyes sharpened. What kind of challenge? Saren hesitated, then said, a tournament. Combat, tactics, and endurance. It's brutal, but it's the only way to change minds here. The humans exchanged glances. Rena's hands clenched in anticipation. Jara's jaw tightened. Kyle stood, the fire in his eyes reigniting. Then we fight. Not just for ourselves, but for every human who's ever been mocked, humiliated, or underestimated. Saren nodded slowly. Good. You leave in 2 days. As she left, the cell felt smaller, heavier with the weight of what was to come. Outside the station's walls, the stars blinked cold and indifferent. But inside, a new storm was rising. A storm born of human rage, unyielding and unbreakable. And the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. The morning sun, or rather the artificial starfield projected through the station's observation dome, cast a pale glow over Epsilon Outpost. The usual hum of life felt heavier, charged with tension. Across the sprawling corridors, whispered conversations buzzed. Have you seen the humans? They fought like nothing we've ever seen. In the humans' holding quarters, the air was thick with anticipation. The tournament loomed, an arena where reputation, pride, and survival would be decided. It wasn't just about victory, it was about proving the unyielding strength behind human rage. Kale sat cross-legged on the floor, his eyes closed, muscles tense. Around him, his team, Rena, Jara, and others, prepared themselves in silence, minds sharpening as weapons. Jara broke the quiet. They expect us to be wild, chaotic, to lose control. That's their mistake. Kyle opened his eyes, a flicker of steel within them. Our rage isn't blind, it's focused. It fuels our will, our precision. Rena, still bruised from the bar fight, flexed her fingers. Let's show them the truth. The humans trained relentlessly, pushing their bodies beyond exhaustion, honing every strike, every dodge, every strategy. But the greatest strength wasn't muscle, it was the fire burning inside them. The day of the tournament arrived with a roar. The arena was colossal. Carved into the hollow core of an asteroid, rings of spectators from countless species filling the stands. Massive holographic screens broadcasted the event across star systems. The opening ceremonies were a parade of alien champions, sleek, disciplined, and coldly confident. When the humans entered, the crowd's reaction was a mix of curiosity, scorn, and barely concealed fear. Kyle's team stood shoulder to shoulder, eyes blazing. Their opponents were an intimidating array of elite warriors, the serpentine Zelvran duelists, the brute force Tharnox mercenaries, and the enigmatic mind warriors from the Zyral Collective. The first match was Kyle against a Zelvran champion, named Vrek. The crowd hushed as they stepped into the arena's ring, a platform of gleaming metal surrounded by energy barriers. Vrek's movements were fluid, precise, a dance of lethal strikes. But Kale's response was different. Every punch and block was charged with raw power, every motion fueled by controlled fury. The two clashed in a whirlwind of blows, sparks flying as fists met scales. Kale's rage sharpened his senses. He anticipated attacks, turning fury into calculated counters. When Vrek lunged with a venomous strike, Kyle sidestepped and slammed his fist into the alien's ribs, sending a crack audible throughout the arena. Vrek stumbled, then dropped to one knee. The crowd gasped. A human had bested a Zelvran champion, but it wasn't just Kale who stunned the audience. Rena's match was a spectacle of speed and adaptability. Her opponent, a towering Tharnox brute, underestimated her agility and sharp instincts. With each dodge and strike, she wore him down, exploiting openings created by her unrelenting fury. The Zyral mind warrior, known for using psychic attacks, faced Jara. But Jara's emotional intensity created a mental shield, her rage acting as a barrier against psychic probes. The duel became a battle of wills as much as bodies, ending with Jara breaking through the opponent's defenses and forcing a surrender. Across every match, humans fought not with reckless abandon, but with a deadly combination of passion and precision. Between battles, the aliens whispered among themselves, their smirks replaced by wary glances. This is not what we expected, muttered Thraxil, the diplomat who had mocked humanity. One of the Zyril elders nodded. Their rage is not weakness, it is power, and it grows stronger with each fight. The tournament grew fiercer. The humans, battered but unbroken, pushed onward, their rage transforming into an unstoppable force. They adapted to every fighting. Style thrown their way, their determination inspiring those who watched. In the final round, Kale faced the reigning champion, a massive armored warlord named Korak. The arena crackled with anticipation. This was more than a fight. It was a collision of ideologies, Korak charged, his strikes like hammer blows. Kale absorbed the assault, every block fueled by the fire inside. When the warlord's guard faltered, Kale unleashed a furious barrage, each hit precise, each movement a testament to the strength born from controlled rage. The crowd rose as Korak fell, defeated but not dishonored. Kale stood tall, chest heaving, eyes blazing with victory and something deeper, pride. As the dust settled, the atmosphere shifted. What had begun as mockery and scorn transformed into something else, awe, respect, and a dawning fear of what humans truly were. Backstage, alien leaders approached the human team cautiously. Thraxil bowed his head, voice grudging. It seems we underestimated you. Kale's gaze met his, steady and unyielding. Rage is not chaos, it's strength, and we're just getting started. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The echoes of the tournament's final clash still reverberated through Epsilon Outpost. The great arena, once a place of spectacle and arrogance, now buzzed with hushed conversations filled with a new, uneasy respect. News of the humans' brutal yet disciplined victories spread like wildfire. Screens in marketplaces, docking bays, and dim cantinas across the station replayed the battles again and again, etching the image of Kale's victorious glare and the relentless fury of his team into the minds of countless species. In the polished halls where galactic elites gathered, the mood shifted. Alien delegates who had once laughed openly now avoided direct eye contact with the humans. Behind closed doors, murmurs of concern filled the air. Thraxil, the Zelvron diplomat who had scorned human rage, paced in his quarters. His 6 arms gestured wildly in frustration as he muttered, "How did we miss this? The humans, they fight not just with fists, but with something deeper, something dangerous." Across the station, Kyle and his team recovered in their quarters, battered, but undefeated. Jara sat quietly, cleaning a wound on her arm, her expression thoughtful. "They still fear us," she said softly. "But it's not just because of our strength. It's because our rage is something they don't understand." Rena, still nursing bruises, nodded. "They thought rage meant chaos, loss of control. But we control it. We use it." Kyle, standing by the window overlooking the endless void of stars, spoke with a quiet intensity. "They mocked our rage because they thought it was weakness. Now they see it as a threat." Outside the station, in a shadowed meeting room, the Alien Coalition convened an emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species sat around a vast hollow table, the flickering stars projected above them. "We can't let this continue," growled Korak, the fallen champion. His voice was rough with pride and bruised ego. "Humans have shattered our illusions. They are more than barbarians, they are a force." Another delegate, a sleek Zyril elder, nodded thoughtfully. "Their rage fuels resilience. It bends, but does not break. If we ignore this, we risk losing control over the balance of power." Thraxil's voice cut through the room. "We must contain them, show that their rage, no matter how fierce, can be controlled or crushed." "But how?" asked a nervous voice. "They adapt too quickly." The council's plan was clear. Provoke the humans into another confrontation, one that would expose any cracks in their rage-fueled armor. Back on Epsilon Outpost, the humans found no peace. Whispers followed their every move. Some offered grudging respect, others barely disguised hostility. In the rusted Ion, the bar where it had all begun, Kale found himself face to face with an old adversary, a Xenobarian mercenary with a cruel smile. "You're lucky the last fight ended when it did," the mercenary sneered. "Next time you won't be so fortunate." Kyle's gaze hardened. "Next time we'll be ready." Days later, an anonymous message arrived for the human delegation. A challenge from the coalition. A formal peace summit disguised as diplomacy, but with clear strings attached. The message promised an opportunity to prove humanity's place in galactic society. Refuse, and the humans risked isolation or worse. Accept, and they'd walk into a political arena fraught with traps. Jara gathered the team. "This is a test," she said. "We'll need to be sharper, smarter, and more controlled than ever." Kyle's jaw clenched. "We've proven our strength, now we prove our resolve." The peace summit opened with grand ceremony. Alien dignitaries surrounded the human representatives in a vast chamber filled with shimmering light and the hum of advanced technology. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. Hidden among the delegates were provocateurs, agents tasked with pushing the humans to the edge to see if their rage could be manipulated, broken. An alien diplomat, smiling sweetly, leaned close to Jara during a recess. "We admire your people's spirit," she whispered, "but passion unchecked leads to destruction." Jara's eyes narrowed. "Our passion is what keeps us alive. You'll learn that soon enough." As the summit unfolded, subtle provocations escalated. Verbal jabs disguised as diplomacy, suspicious accidents targeting human delegates, and veiled threats in private meetings. Kyle watched closely, sensing the growing trap. The coalition hoped to ignite a new conflict, one that would justify turning the humans into outcasts. But the humans were ready. Their rage, tempered by strategy, burned brighter than ever. When an alien envoy publicly insulted Kale during a heated debate, the room fell silent, waiting for an outburst. Kale held his ground, voice calm but fierce. "Mock my rage all you want. It is not chaos. It is our strength, our shield, and our sword. Underestimate it again and you'll see the fury you invited." The chamber erupted in stunned murmurs. The humans had not just survived the provocation, they had risen above it. As the summit ended, the coalition leaders met privately. The sentiment was unanimous. The humans were not to be dismissed or contained. "We must rethink our approach," said Thraxel, eyes dark with grudging respect. "They have shattered our illusions and reshaped the game." Back in the human quarters, Kyle looked out at the stars again. The galaxy was waking up to humanity's power, not just their rage but their unbreakable will. The war for respect was far from over, but for the first time, the humans knew they were no longer the ones to be mocked. The days after the summit felt like walking a razor's edge. The humans were no longer seen as mere savages but as a formidable presence, and every interaction was loaded with unspoken threats and fragile alliances. Kyle felt it keenly, the weight of expectation resting on his shoulders like a mantle forged in fire. The tournament had marked them as warriors, but the summit had made them targets. In the quiet confines of their quarters, Jara paced restlessly. "They'll come after us again," she said, voice low and tense. "This isn't over." Rena, sitting nearby, tapped her fingers on the table, eyes shadowed. "They fear what they don't understand. Our rage, our resilience." Kale stood by the window, watching the glittering stars beyond the station. "They want to break us, to force us into submission. But rage is our strength. It's what keeps us alive when everything else fails." Suddenly, an urgent message flickered on the room's comm console. The station's command center requested Kale's immediate presence. The command deck was a hive of activity. Holographic maps displayed troop movements and sensor readings from nearby sectors. Saren, the security chief, approached with a grim expression. "There's been an incident," she said sharply. "A convoy of human traders was ambushed near the asteroid belt. The attackers are unidentified, but evidence points to coalition mercenaries trying to provoke a war." Kale's fists clenched. "Casualties?" "Several. Survivors are in critical condition. The room fell silent, the gravity of the attack sinking in. Jara stepped forward, her voice steady, but fierce. They want us to respond with rage, to justify their aggression. We need to be smarter. Kale nodded. Then we show them our rage is more than violence. It's resolve and strategy. Back in the rusted ion, whispers of the attack spread fast. The humans gathered, their eyes dark with a mix of grief and fury. Rena slammed her fist on the table. They think this will break us. Kyle's voice cut through the rising storm. No, it will unite us. The attack was not just a strike against traitors. It was a message, a reminder that the galaxy still saw humans as unpredictable threats. But the humans would not be pawns in their game. As tensions escalated, the coalition's leaders convened again, debating their next move. Some pushed for full-scale military retaliation, seeing the ambush as a chance to crush humanity's rising influence. Others, including Thraxil, argued for caution. If we escalate now, we risk awakening a storm we cannot control. The fragile, peace on Epsilon outpost teetered on the brink. In the days that followed, Kale and his team worked tirelessly. They strengthened alliances with sympathetic factions, gathered intelligence, and trained harder than ever. Jara met with alien diplomats who had begun to respect humans not just for their strength, but their unwavering principles. Your rage is tempered with honor, one elder said quietly. It is a rare and dangerous combination. Kyle smiled grimly. It's what makes us human. Then came the night of the second challenge. A clandestine meeting was arranged, a duel of champions to settle the rising tensions without plunging the station into war. Kyle was chosen to represent humanity again. The arena was smaller this time, hidden in the station's underbelly. Word had spread. The crowd was mixed. Supporters, skeptics, and those hungry for violence. Kyle's opponent was a shadowy figure known only as Vex, a mercenary reputed for brutal efficiency and cold tactics. As they faced each other, the tension was palpable. Vex struck first, fast, precise, calculating. Kale met each attack with a blend of fury and focus. His rage flared, but his movements were deliberate. Each strike meant to incapacitate, not kill. The fight was a brutal ballet of wills. Vex's speed and cunning tested Kale's endurance and spirit. When Vex unleashed a deadly blow aimed at Kale's ribs, Kale twisted, catching the strike and turning it into a devastating counter. With a final surge, Kale knocked Vex to the ground, breathless but victorious. The crowd erupted, the victory a clear statement. Humans were not to be underestimated or controlled. Back in their quarters, Kale sat quietly, staring at the scars both visible and hidden. Rena broke the silence. They'll keep pushing, won't they? Kyle nodded slowly. They fear what we represent, a rage that cannot be caged. But that's our strength. Yara placed a hand on his shoulder. And it's the galaxy's new reality. The war, for respect, had only just begun. The humans' rage was no longer mocked. It was feared, respected, and inevitably, it would shape the future of the stars. The attack on the convoy and Kale's narrow victory over Vex sent ripples through Epsilon, outpost, and far beyond. What was once a hidden tension now spilled into open conflict, and the delicate balance of power threatened to collapse. Kale stood on the observation deck, watching the cold stars outside, each one a distant reminder of how small and vulnerable humanity seemed among the swirling galaxies, and yet how fierce. Every move we make is watched, Jara said, joining him silently. The coalition won't stop until they break us or control us. Kyle nodded. We can't fight them alone. Behind the scenes, Yara had been working tirelessly, reaching out to alien factions discontent with the coalition's hardline stance. Not all of them see us as enemies, she said. Some fear the coalition's growing arrogance as much as we do. One such faction was the Lysari, a mysterious amphibious species known for their wisdom and tactical brilliance. Their leader, Elder Myrus, agreed to a clandestine meeting in a dim chamber beneath the station, surrounded by shifting water tanks and bioluminescent flora. Myrus regarded Kale and his team with cautious interest. "We have watched your people," Myrus said, voice echoing softly. "Your rage is unlike any force we know. It is raw but tempered with purpose. It unsettles the balance." Kale met the elder's gaze. "We don't want to upset the balance. We want a place in it." Myrus nodded slowly. "Then we must forge a new alliance, one built on respect and strength, not fear." Word of the alliance began to spread, unsettling the coalition further. If humanity gained allies, the balance of power would tip, and the old order would be challenged. Back in the station's corridors, the atmosphere thickened with suspicion and quiet threats. Kyle's team found themselves targeted, subtle sabotage of their supplies, mysterious warnings, even an attempted assassination narrowly thwarted by Saren. "We're fighting on all fronts now," Saren warned. "This is more than a fight for respect. It's a war for survival." Amidst the turmoil, a new challenge arrived. A message from the Coalition's War Council. They demanded a final confrontation, an all-out battle between chosen champions from both sides to decide the fate of Epsilon Outpost. Refusing meant war. Accepting meant risking everything. Kale convened the team. "This is no longer about proving ourselves," he said grimly. "It's about protecting everyone we've fought for. The humans, our allies, and even those who doubt us." Rena's eyes blazed with determination. "Then we fight not just with rage, but with unity." Jara laid out a plan that combined combat skill with strategy and diplomacy, emphasizing that strength alone wouldn't win this battle. The day of the confrontation dawned cold and clear under the artificial sky of the arena, a vast circular pit surrounded by towering walls and throngs of spectators from every corner of the galaxy. Kale led the human team, now bolstered by Lysari warriors and a handful of other allied species. Their presence was a bold statement, a united front against the Coalition's might. The Coalition's champions were fierce, their armor gleaming, their eyes cold with resolve. The battle was brutal, every strike echoing with years of hatred, fear, and survival instinct. Kale fought with a focus honed sharper than ever. Every move was precise, every burst of rage controlled and channeled. The Lysari warriors struck alongside the humans with fluid grace and overwhelming force, their alliance proving invaluable. Midway through the battle, Kale found himself face to face with the Coalition's warlord, the massive armored Korak. Their clash was cataclysmic. Korak's brute strength was matched by Kale's unyielding fury and tactical mind. Blows thundered, armor cracked, and the arena shook under the weight of their fight. Kale's rage burned bright, but he held back the destructive impulse, using it as fuel for endurance and precision. When Korak finally fell, it was not just a physical defeat but a symbolic one, an upheaval of old prejudices. As the dust settled, the Coalition's forces retreated, beaten but wary. The alliance between humans and the Lysari, along with other factions, had shifted the power dynamic irreversibly. Elder Myrus approached Kale, her voice calm but firm. "You have shown that rage, when guided by purpose, can build as well as destroy." Kyle looked at the assembled allies, humans and aliens united, and for the first time felt a true sense of hope. "We fight not to conquer, but to be understood," Kale said, "to prove that our rage is not a curse but a spark." Back on the observation deck, Yara watched the stars twinkle with quiet optimism. "The galaxy is changing," she said softly, "and we're part of that change." Kyle nodded, the fire in his eyes tempered now with the steady flame of resolve. The war for respect had turned into a war for survival and alliance, and humanity's rage was the spark that would light the way. The uneasy peace forged after the battle in the arena was fragile at best. The Coalition, bruised and humiliated, retreated to their strongholds, licking their wounds and plotting retaliation. But the alliance between humans and the Lysari was growing stronger, a beacon of defiance in a galaxy ruled by fear and old prejudices. Kyle stood on the bridge of the Resolute, their newly commissioned flagship, a sleek vessel symbolizing humanity's rise and the unity of diverse species under their banner. Around him, his team moved with quiet efficiency, preparing for what they knew was inevitable: war. Yara approached, her face lined with concern but resolute. "We can't keep reacting. We have to take the fight to them." Kyle nodded. "Agreed. We've shown strength in defense. Now we must be the storm." The Coalition's heart was the mighty fortress station Vortis, a swirling mass of guns, shields, and troops, orbiting a harsh red star. Taking Vortis meant breaking the Coalition's grip on the region, a strike that could shift the power balance forever. But the fortress was a nightmare to assault, with layers of defenses, thousands of soldiers, and a command structure ruthless. In its tactics, Kale's plan was bold: a coordinated assault involving not just brute force, but subterfuge and an inside agent. Saren had uncovered a dissident faction within the Coalition, a group disillusioned with the war and willing to aid the Alliance, for a price. Under the cover of darkness, the Alliance fleet slipped through, space cloaked by stealth technology provided by the Lissari. The tension on the bridge was palpable. Every blinking light and distant sensor ping felt like a heartbeat of war. Kale's mind raced. The stakes had never been higher. Failure would mean the end of their movement and the extinction of the fragile hope they'd kindled. "Ready the boarding teams," Kale ordered. "We hit their weak points fast and hard." The assault began with blinding intensity. Human fighters darted through the fortress's outer defenses, engaging in fierce dogfights with Coalition interceptors. Lissari commandos slipped through air ducts and ventilation shafts, disabling security systems from within. Kale led the ground assault personally, his fury tempered by strategy and the knowledge that every move could mean life or death. Inside the fortress, chaos reigned. Coalition soldiers fought desperately to hold their lines, their confidence shaken by the surprise and ferocity of the attack. But deeper within the stronghold, Kale encountered the true heart of the enemy: General Korvax, a cold and ruthless commander known for his brutal tactics and unflinching loyalty to the Coalition's oppressive regime. The duel between Kale and Korvax was brutal and personal. Korvax wielded a massive energy glaive, his strikes precise and overwhelming. But Kale's rage, sharpened by the trials and betrayals they had faced, gave him an edge. The fight tore through the corridors of Vortis, echoing with the clash of blades and the roar of determination. Kale was pushed to the brink, wounds searing, breath ragged, but he refused to yield. Each strike was fueled not just by anger, but by the fierce desire to protect his people and the fragile alliances they'd forged. With a final, devastating blow, Kale disarmed Korvax and forced him to surrender. News of the victory spread swiftly. The fall of Vortis was a shockwave that rocked the Coalition to its core. Some factions began to question their leadership, while others prepared for the war that now seemed inevitable. Back on the Resolute, Kale gathered his team. "We've won a battle," he said, voice steady but heavy with the cost. "But the war is far from over." Jara's eyes burned with determination. "They'll come back harder. We need to be ready." Rena clenched her fists. "And we will be. Our rage is our strength, and now it's a force that shapes the galaxy." But even as the Alliance celebrated, a darker storm brewed. Unbeknownst to Kale and his team, a shadowy figure watched from afar, an enigmatic strategist known only as Vera, whose loyalty to the Coalition was absolute, and whose hatred for humanity ran deep. Vera's plans were ruthless and cunning. She intended to exploit every weakness, turn every ally against the humans, and bring about their destruction, not just through war, but through betrayal and subterfuge. Her first move was to infiltrate the Alliance's ranks, planting seeds of doubt and discord. The calm before the next storm was deceptive. Kyle, standing once again on the observation deck, stared out at the stars with a mixture of hope and foreboding. The galaxy had changed. Humanity's rage was no longer a thing to mock, but a blazing beacon that could unite or destroy. The final battle was coming, and Kale knew, deep in his bones, that only by mastering the fire within could they survive what lay ahead. The uneasy calm shattered like glass. Vera's infiltration had done its work, whispering doubt and suspicion among the Alliance's ranks. Friends questioned friends, and trust, the fragile glue holding the coalition of species together, began to crack. Kale stood in the war room aboard the Resolute, the glow of the holographic star map casting sharp shadows across his face. Reports of sabotage, intercepted communications twisted into lies, and defections filled the room. "This isn't just war," Jara said, voice tight. "It's a war of minds. They want to tear us apart before the next battle." Kale's fists clenched. "Then we fight harder, with rage and with resolve." The final confrontation was set to take place on the volcanic world of Tyrannus, a brutal planet, scarred by fire and storms, its jagged peaks and molten rivers a reflection of the tempest about to unfold. The Coalition's forces rallied under Vera's ruthless command, awaited the Alliance's arrival, confident in their superior numbers and cunning. But the humans, tempered by battles won and alliances forged, brought something far more dangerous, a fury that refused to be contained. As the Resolute descended through Tyrannus's thick, sulfurous atmosphere, Kale's mind raced through the plan. The Alliance would split, lacery forces targeting the enemy's supply lines, human teams engaging frontline combat, and Kale leading a strike directly at Vera's command center. The battle erupted in a storm of fire and fury. Explosions rocked the volcanic plains, plumes of ash rising to blot out the twin suns. Kale fought fiercely, his rage a controlled inferno. Each strike was a calculated blow, each roar a promise to those who'd fallen. Amidst the chaos, Kale's team pushed through the enemy lines, reaching the fortress where Vera awaited. Inside the command center, cold and clinical beneath layers of obsidian, Vera stood tall, her eyes gleaming with icy fury. "You think your rage will save you?" she sneered. "Your people are chaos wrapped in anger, a disease to be purged." Kyle stepped forward, his voice steady but burning. "Our rage is what makes us human. It's our strength, our shield, and our sword." Their battle was fierce, clashing amid the humming of control panels and flickering lights. Vera was quick, ruthless, her tactics honed to a deadly edge. But Kale's rage was no longer blind fury. It was a force refined by pain, loss, and unbreakable will. The fight raged on, each strike shaking the very foundation of the command center. Kale's fury surged, but with it came clarity. He saw past the rage to the core of his power, a determination not just to win but to protect everything he loved. With a final devastating blow, Kyle struck Vera down, her control shattered. Outside, the Coalition's forces faltered. The Alliance pressed their advantage, breaking the enemy's will and scattering their armies. Victory was hard-won and costly, but it was theirs. As the dust settled and the fires of Tyrannus dimmed, Kale stood among his team and allies. They were battered, scarred, but unbroken. Jara looked at him, eyes shining. "They mocked us for our rage, Cam, but we've shown them what it truly means." Rena smiled, bruised but fierce. "Our rage isn't a weakness. It's the heart of who we are." Kyle nodded, gazing out at the distant stars, the same stars that had witnessed humanity's rise from fragile beginnings to a force the galaxy could no longer ignore. In the days that followed, new alliances formed, old enemies reconsidered. The galaxy had changed, and humanity's rage, once mocked and feared, was now a beacon of strength and hope. Kale's final thought as he looked to the stars was clear. They had not just survived the storm. They had become the storm. The end.